recording, and I will let you know. How are you doing?
Excellent.
Great, great.
Very busy.
Thank you. Okay, yeah, Dr. John, I just want to share some ideas after a session with you, and I I wrote a message you recently, and I really feel some changes, and it was very powerful. So
Cool.
thank you very much. I will let you know for sure later, and I think it's going to be better and better every day. So
Awesome.
yeah, so I'm not going to take a lot of like too much time from you. So just want to introduce you to my audience and record this interview and just usual conversation.
Okay.
Uh-huh. Okay. Hello. My name is Pavel Verbnyak, and today with me a very nice person, good friend of mine I've met recently in Scottsdale, Arizona, is Dr. John DeVore. Dr. John is a speaker, is chiropractor, creator of DeVore Method, and he helped a lot of people with such things like nutrition, weight control, emotional well-being, and so on. And I had a privilege, had a full session with Dr. John in late June, and we worked on such topics. It's like money blocks and relationships. It was very powerful. So, Dr. John, hello again, and can you please tell us about yourself, what you do exactly, how did you start, and so on?
Yeah, sure.
Mhm.
Well, I started when I got out of chiropractic school. Um, I was very skilled at what I do, and I got tremendous results. But I couldn't seem to make money work the way that I felt like it should be able to, and I could feel this hidden, unknown, like some force holding me back. And I didn't realize at the time I was really holding myself back. So I started studying things. I listened to Tony Robbins, Wayne Dyer, Jack Canfield, T. Harv Eker, Earl Nightingale, and I listened to these books on tapes, and I'd probably go through a book 5 to 30 times before I move on to another one. And I tried all these techniques, and I just kind of started to realize, that thoughts and emotions are vibrations, and how the law of attraction works, what you feel comes to you. And I really got into trying to understand how I could be causing this to myself, how I was sabotaging my own results. Because I would notice that I would make just enough money, not any extra. And even when my expenses would fluctuate, like one month I might need a few thousand more than the month before, I would still make that. And I thought it had to be more difficult for the universe to hit this fluctuating number every month rather than just any number above that. That's when I realized there was an agenda not to make more than enough. And so I got into figuring out why. It has to do with unconditional love, your love language, the people around you, your parents, past traumas, all kinds of things. So that's kind of how I got into it, trying to figure out my own problems. And I did. So I tell people I went pretty far down the rabbit hole, and I found the rabbit.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the short version.
Uh-huh. Thank you. Uh, and what do you do? What's the war method means, Dr. John? Because when I worked with you, you did some laser exercise. We work on tapping like this and a lot of this. Can you please explain how it works and why did we do that?
Oh, yeah, sure. So, again, thoughts and emotions are vibrational frequencies that our body generates. And so what I really came up with is how to find those exact moments in your past where you created a fault or where you crossed some wires in your subconscious and created an agenda. There's about 3 or 4 different protocols, different ways that happens. But once I find that, you have to interrupt it. And so the interruption process, you take high quality vibration and put it in the presence of this low quality vibration. Emotional blocks and hidden agendas are low quality. They're low tone or low volume. If you think about it like sound, it's low volume. Well, if you put high vibration or high and loud sound in the presence of it, you can't hear the low sounds anymore. They cover them up. And so, what you've seen, I have this big rack of colored glasses.
Yeah.
So each one of these colors correlates with one of the chakras, the energy centers in the body. So I can make your nervous system focus on a particular place in the body. And then I've got a rack of the tuning forks. So see, there's 5 ways to integrate or affect the brain. One is through the eyes. There's 2 through the ears, so that's the sound, and then there's head movement, which I don't use that one. Then there's the pressure receptors and motion receptors in your muscles and in your joints. So that red-violet laser that I use, that affects those 2 aspects. And the tapping, I didn't get this from EFT, but some people may be familiar with all the points you tap. I just use these. These are the strongest meridian points that if you're stimulating those, your brain can't hold a negative thought. So while you have to open up this file. And so my technique, basically, I found what file needs to be open. So we open that by saying a statement. I totally and completely love myself, even if whatever it is that I found we need to work on. So you're opening up this file that defines why you can't love yourself. And then we interrupt it in the presence of all this high-quality vibration, and it completely rewrites it. Now, the important thing about the laser is the violet laser magnifies negative emotions. And then the red laser will start to interrupt and reverse that energy. So the red-violet laser alone will interrupt things, and the red laser has been proven to stimulate neuroplasticity, meaning the nerves can rearrange themselves and create new synapses. In about 1.5 minutes, it can do that. So while we're interrupting it with the meridians, with the color, and the laser can also facilitate how fast it can change. And in just that moment, when the brain has understood and it's interrupted this pattern, I usually give you a little insight, which comes to me intuitively most times, and I tell you how to look at this original event a different way. And in that moment, in the presence of all that vibration and the red laser, you get a conscious understanding, and it snaps and rewrites itself and is permanent after that.
Oh, I see.
So, a lot of people say you take something out, you have to put something in. I'm not really taking it out. We're just going back to a traumatic moment and rethinking it. It changes the perspective and the understanding of it. So I haven't taken anything out of you and replaced it. You decided differently once you looked at it again. So most traumas come from what I call ignoring guidance. Guidance meaning that intuitive inspiration that you get from God or from your creator or from the universe, however you look at it. And when you decide not to follow it, your ego and your arrogance steps in and says, well, I know more than God. I know better than the universe. I'm not going to do that. That always creates self-punishment. When you get intuition and you decide not to follow it, that will always create limitation and self-punishment. So I can take you back to that moment where that first happened. Typically, this type of thing will happen throughout your life. But you got to go back to that first moment when you were 5 or 6 or 20, whatever age, and see it a different way right as you interrupt it. And then that makes it a permanent change and you have a conscious understanding. Next from there is your love language. Everybody feels and expresses love in a particular way. And when you run into problems with that is it's when your nervous system associates pain or trauma with the way you feel love. And now your nervous system says it's no longer okay to receive that kind of love. And then you have this insatiable need to be loved even though you won't accept it. That's a really bad place to be. And then there's just belief systems, where your nervous system is always trying to balance pain and pleasure, always. And when you have a painful event, your nervous system writes a script to protect you from ever experiencing that pain again. And then that cause you just automatically live your life to avoid any situation that could bring you that kind of pain, and that itself is limiting. So those are three major things that I end up working on with people. Ignoring guidance, the love language, belief systems, and then after that it gets a little bit more complicated. But those are the most common things. And what I really came up with is how to find those issues. The interruption process is a compilation of other people's work. The color glasses and the tuning forks and the violet laser protocol I got from Dr. Brimhall. The tapping I got from emotional 5-minute phobia cures, where I got that from. And I was just meditating one night in my quiet, happy place where I go meditate, and I got this inspiration on how to combine these different techniques into one release process. Now, the way I find these original events, there's this book, Feelings Alive Never Die. What it has in it is I can start asking these questions and I can muscle test you. So with the muscle test and the kinesiology, some people will recognize it as, I get the truth. I can ask you subconscious questions and void your conscious. Because the subconscious, the energy there, always tells the truth when you do the testing right. So I can say, I totally and completely love myself, even if I make enough money, even if I make more than enough money, even if I make a lavish abundance. And if you go weak at one of those, well, it tells me something there defines you as unlovable in that condition. And once I open up that file, I can use that violet laser to scan your body just like a barcode scanner, and I'll find an organ somewhere. So let's say a gallbladder shows up when I'm testing you. I can look into this under gallbladder, and I can also test you for those emotions. Feelings of bitterness, feelings of anger, wanting to force things. And that gives me an idea of what the emotion is, and then I can take you back. This first began when I was 5, 10, 20, 30, and I can find what age and what person was involved, a male, a female, grandfather, father, brother. So that's how I narrow it down to what's the type of emotion and what age were you and who did it have to do with. And that's what gets the whole thing started. So that's a pretty good explanation of the technique, how it works. And
I see. Yeah. Thank you, Dr. John. Does anyone have such like challenges and some situations they can improve and work on, or some people doesn't have this? Or Dr. John, if maybe someone doesn't want to change this, what do you think about that?
There's one situation that I cannot affect, that I cannot change, and that's free will. We all have absolute free will to use our creative power any way we want. And the person who has decided that they don't want to change, I can't do anything with. Because when I go through the testing, one of the questions I'll get down to is it God's will, is it my will? When I find it's my will on the person, we're basically done. I just tell them, you want this. And I don't see that very often at all. Most people don't like the results in their life, and they want to change. Those people typically never get in front of me because they don't seek out change. Or, when it does happen, a spouse or a friend has drugged them in, kicking and screaming, and they paid for their session. Those are the people that I don't get very good results with, or any results at all. So I say I get tremendous results 98% of the time. It's that's the 2%. They didn't pay for their sessions. Someone drugged them in. They didn't want to change.
I see. And can the person do any daily rituals to change their situation? You just mentioned some books. You mentioned meditation. Dr. John, can they change? They feel something. For example, they feel challenges in long-term relationships or in some financial blocks. Can they discover firstly by themselves, and after that probably come to you, or maybe they can start from something by themselves in their room? What do you think?
Well, there's certainly books and training things you can do on your own, and I did a lot of that stuff. I spent about 8 years studying information, and when I say studying, I mean like when I woke up, I'm driving in the car, and I'm driving home, and I listened to a book or read a book at night, and it was every day for years. For 8 years this went on. And it didn't change the results. I felt better, Now, if I hadn't have done all that study, I wouldn't have figured out this technique. So sometimes you can clear things that aren't what I call hardwired. Again, your nervous system is always trying to balance pain and pleasure. So in your past, if your nervous system has written a script, like a belief system, that says it's wrong for you to feel something or do something, I haven't found that anybody ever resolves that on their own. It's a neurological, hardwired thing. It's almost like it's in your DNA at that point. And you have to go back to that moment and process it and rethink it. Now, once you do that, you need correct information. So it's not like you can just come to me and I'll clear out your issues and then everything's great. You need to educate yourself at the same time. You can do that before you get cleared or after, it doesn't matter. But I found you do need both. You need training as well. So there are certain things like the ignoring guidance. Sometimes people figure those out on their own but it takes 5, 10, 15 years to do it, and you have to be seeking it out. Now, I have resolved some things on my own by intense prayer and meditation, just having the intention to know. Sometimes you get inspiration, insights, and little by little you start to work those things out of your life. And so, yeah, that's certainly true. But it takes 5, 10, 15 years, and it can be done in a few sessions. But the belief system, the way I'm defining that, I've never seen anybody resolve one of those on their own. But ignoring guidance, you certainly can figure that stuff out. Love language, you can figure. Sometimes people can figure that on their own. But there's two parts to that. There's not feeling love, which is really you don't perceive it. And then there's refusing to receive it. Well, that's a hardwired block. You have to neurologically unlock that unwillingness to receive it. So that's one that you have to get help. And then the limiting belief system, you have to get help. But ignoring guidance in the first level of not feeling love, a lot of that, if it's a simple problem, you can figure that out by reading the books and going through some exercises and things like that on your own. So the answer is yes and no. Depends on how deeply, how intense the block is.
Yeah. And I worked with you personally. And what's the difference between work with you, Dr. John, personally and through Skype? Is it the same process, or there's some like little bit difficult, like long-term communicating? Or you mentioned when I met you that it's the same.
It's the same most of the time. Now, if something pops up where I tell them, we really need to be in person for this, I like to be in person for it, then yeah, but that's extremely rare. Mm-hmm. I do the self-testing. I can test my nervous system for yours instead of testing you. So the only difference would be you don't feel that dramatic change in your test when I show you a before after. You don't get to see that, but the results are still the same. There's certain particular blocks that I'd rather be in person. I've had a theory that this could go wrong if I wasn't standing right there. It's never happened though. Mm-hmm. And so usually the results are the same. Now when people have physical health issues, a lot of that I need to get my hands on them. But the emotional blocks, I haven't found that there's a problem. I mean, I really haven't had somebody where it went bad and I need to be standing there with them and couldn't. That's actually never happened.
I see.
So no, there's a lot of people that I've only ever worked with them on Skype, and they got the same kind of results that everyone else did.
Okay. Yeah, and Dr. John, can we show something like 3, 4, 5 minutes demo version for the audience how you do that, and how can we show the
like over Skype?
Yeah.
Works over Skype? Okay, sure. Is there anything that you want me to check on you?
Yeah. I think it's going to be the same as I mentioned you personally, that maybe long-term relationships, because I have some relationships and it doesn't it's not too long for me, so it's very, very easy for me to make acquaintance, to do all of this, but to communicate and do all of this, it's
okay, yeah, sure. So I don't know if I mentioned to you before, whenever somebody comes to me with a specific issue like a money block or relationship or weight loss, if they've done a lot of studying, a lot of processing on their own, about 40% of the time, one session gets them where they want to be. Usually it's the third or fifth session that really blows the top off, and then they're where they want. Probably 80% of the people, 5 sessions gets them beyond where they expected they could be. Around 40–50%, 3 of them. But the group that has done a lot of processing on their own, about 40% of them only 1 session. So just so you have an idea what it takes to really get it completely where you want. So what I do is I start with a question, and I'll say it as if I were you. And I have to test a few things. So I say, so you see this testing? I'm testing friction. So when my body feels the stress, when I key into something that's stressful on you, my muscle tone increases and a friction change, I'll feel it. And it'll actually stop, because that's what I program myself to look for. So say, as Pavel, I totally completely love myself, even if I am in a long-term, loving, committed relationship. So out of those 3 things, long-term, loving, committed, I got a block. So there's something about being a commitment, right? So then I ask, I totally, completely love myself, even if I'm committed to a relationship. Committed. Am I ignoring guidance? So it's ignoring guidance. So then what I do, you've seen when I'm in person, I'll take the laser and I'll scan you and I muscle test you, and you'll go weak where the block is. Since I'm not sitting there with you, I use this silhouette of a person to represent you, to so you have an idea of how I find it on your body. Or sometimes I'll use my body and I scan myself. So I totally completely love myself, even if I am in a committed relationship. Okay, so it goes to the heart center. So then I open up the little book here. And I actually have heart memorized because it's very common, but I figured I'd show you. So we go to that list there. Violent laws of love, feelings of compassion or rejection being blocked, feelings of resentment and or hurt, not feeling approval from others, upsetting family problem, has a difficult time forgiving. So I get a stick on that one. And so then I ask, Pavel has a difficult time forgiving? Yes, I get a stick there. Forgiving who? A male? Okay, a male. This first began in my genetic heritage in the womb, moved to 5 to 10, 11, 12. Age 12, grandfather, father. Have a difficult time forgiving your father at age 12. Now, I don't know how far you want me to get into this with your public, because sometimes things get personal.
Yeah, we can go further. Yes, Dr. John. Okay. Yeah, that would be interesting.
So now I want to know, forgiving your father at age 12 of what? So I can just ask your nervous system that question. I have a difficult time forgiving my father of what? Can I scan? So it says, yes, I can scan. And so I just scan the body again. And it goes to liver. So I'm completely taking my opinion, my judgment, and my consciousness, and your consciousness out of the equation entirely. I'm asking your body's energy, and I'm letting the process answer the questions. I'm letting your nervous system answer the questions.
Yeah.
Feelings of unresolved anger, feelings of resentment and pettiness, being judgmental, critical thoughts. A difficult time forgiving your father of being critical. Okay, so what does that bring up for you?
I'm not sure exactly, Dr. John, because as I mentioned, as I told you when I met you personally, my father passed away when I was 7.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then what I gotta look for is a father figure. Did your mother remarry? Was there a father figure in your life when you were 12?
No, my mother wasn't married again, and
so that's what do you remember about your father?
I don't really remember a lot. When I was like 5, I think my mom moved back to her hometown and started live with her mom and father, with my grandfather and grandmother. So I remember that he had some challenges and difficult situations with drinking, with drink alcohol, and maybe they had some. I remember they had some um, like loud conversation and like scandal. I remember one day, and and pretty much that's it. I don't really remember a lot from him.
What do you remember your mom saying about him? Negative.
I don't really remember, Doctor. I never asked her about him, and she very rarely talked about him. And yeah, but maybe body language and some mention to her friends about father. That wasn't really very positive. I think it was maybe neutral and a little bit negative. But I'm not sure what exactly she said about him.
Okay, so then I just got to figure out what this means. Sometimes when you little kids, you get an idea, and that idea grows, and something at a particular age takes it to a point to where you had a negative emotion about it, and that's when it triggers. Sometimes there's not events. So then I have to kind of rely on intuition when I run into something like that that's not clear, that you don't know just right off the top of your head, oh, I know what that is. So now, others were, okay, so if other people were critical of your father, what was going on in your life when you were 12?
We just lived with my mom, grandfather, and my brother, and 12 years old. So
grandfather. What? Your grandfather, that would be your mother's father?
Yes. Yes.
Do you remember him being critical of your father?
No, he wasn't really critical to anyone. So he was role model. He passed away a year ago, and she was like a great friend, best friend for me, and she's
good.
Yeah, he is great.
So really, I want to try and figure out what critical thoughts has to do with is associated with having long-term relationships. So the first thing was hard, difficult time forgiving. How did your father die?
I don't really know exactly, Dr. John. He died in different city. So my mom just visited his like after he died in first day. So I don't really know what happened there.
All right.
I know that he had some friends, and maybe they drink together, or I don't really remember. I don't really know, Dr. John. I never asked that.
Yeah, that's fine. Let me scan through all this again and make sure I got it right. Long-term committed relationship. Age 12. You. Now, did your mom have to work?
Yes.
How did she feel about having to work?
She never complained about that. Yeah.
How did you feel about her having to work?
I think it's okay. I didn't blame or complain about that, and
Yeah, okay, that's not it. That's not testing.
Yeah.
Okay, so with this, we'll just kind of interrupt what we find, but I want to do like a before and after to check. So what I want you to do is just kind of close your eyes and imagine yourself being in a relationship where you're getting married, you've gotten married. Tell me, can you see a ring on your finger? Can you feel yourself being in a long-term committed relationship? Tell me what you see and what you feel. Because if the way you test something, if you can see color, movement, sound, and it feels good, then you're clear to it. If you can't see an image, you have a hard time producing the image, it doesn't move, you don't feel anything, then there's a block. So tell me what you experience when you try that.
Yeah, and I just tell about my vision, Dr. John, my goals. So I can see a very nice, like beautiful woman together, and we live in a house. We have kids, but I don't feel any. Yeah, it's a little bit more positive. I think
Can you see a ring on your finger? Can you see anything that points out that you're married?
No.
No, okay, because that implies the commitment. All right, so let's do this. So if I don't get a specific event, nothing's like keying in like, oh, I know what that is, then what I do is I release the last thing and find. So what you're going to do is you're going to go, I totally completely love myself, even if I have critical thoughts about my father. And look at the color of glasses.
I totally incomplete myself, even I have critical thoughts about my father. I totally incomplete myself if I have a critical thoughts about my father. I totally in love with myself if I have a critical thoughts about my father. I totally in complete love with myself even I have critical thoughts about my father. I have totally in love with myself even I have critical thoughts about my father. I totally in love with myself even I have critical thoughts about my father. I totally incomplete in love with myself even I have critical thoughts about my father. I totally incomplete in love with myself even I have critical thoughts about my father. I totally incomplete in love with myself even I have critical thoughts about my father. I totally.
Now I'm going to change it. I totally love myself, even if I'm afraid of having children that would be critical of me. Even if I'm afraid of having children that would be critical of me.
I totally incomplete with myself, even if I'm afraid to have children be critical about me. I totally incomplete with myself, even if afraid to have children be critical about myself. I totally incomplete in love with myself, even afraid to have children be critical about myself. I totally incomplete in love with myself, even I'm afraid to have children being critical about myself. I totally incomplete with love with myself, even I'm afraid to have children being critical about myself. I totally in love with myself, even afraid to have children being critical about myself. I totally incomplete in love with myself, even afraid to have children being critical about myself. I totally incomplete in love with myself, even I'm afraid to have children being critical about myself.
Okay, good. Did that last one kind of spark a little bit more for you?
Yeah.
There was sometimes I'll see things like that. There's when a parent has died, is being afraid of having children experience the same thing you did. You know, I've seen other people who have been molested. They're afraid to have children that could get molested, or that kind of thing. So, let's see. As Pavel, I totally love myself, even if I have a long-term, loving, committed relationship. I get that clear. So now let's test it. Just close your eyes, relax, see if you can see yourself with a ring on your finger, and you're married, and you have children.
Yes.
You can see it now.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So that's kind of how one way to test. If the mind can see it, you can attract it. It's true. If you can't see it, then there's a block. So if you can see it afterwards and you couldn't before, that tells us that we did something.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. John. That was very, very, very powerful to show the people how you work. That's amazing. Yeah, really, it's very powerful, as I told you before. Great. Thank you very much for showing that. Dr. John, and a couple of more questions about with our interview. What does, like, you mentioned some mentors and role models you've studied, like Tony Robbins, Jack Canfield, our mutual friend and mentor of mine as well, and Dr. Wayne Dyer, and so on. What does success mean for you, and do you think of yourself as a successful person?
Oh, absolutely. The success is measured in satisfaction and happiness. We should be continually growing our experience of happiness. Now, if your experience of happiness has to have millions of dollars, well, then maybe you need to redefine that, but then that's going to be what your success is. Now, what I've found, most people, when it comes to money, they want to be rich, they want to do this and that, but the bottom line is, if they had enough that they didn't have to worry about money, that's what they want. And I have very little stress in my life. I enjoy my work. I work by myself. I hear people complain about their jobs and the people that they work with and the problems they have in their relationship, and I don't have any of those. And that's successful. Now, do I have goals? Is there things I'm trying to stretch to the next level? Yeah, you should always be in a constant state of growth. Things either grow or they decay. And to me, success is being on the path of a constant state of growth. It's not about being at a level or having achieved a certain thing. It's constantly growing. And I'm constantly evaluating and keeping stress out of my relationship. And I get to have fun with my kids. I have time for myself. Work doesn't necessarily overwhelm me. There's times where I'll notice that I'm blocking money, and then work is a little stressful until I get that cleared. And relationships a little stressful until I get that cleared. But those are short moments. Most of the time, it's pretty good. I mean, you can probably tell I'm relaxed, I'm happy, I have fun, I don't worry about things. And that, to me, that's successful. You just not being worried about things, realizing that I have control of my life. Because my subconscious isn't controlling me beyond my control.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. I think the habit of like constant personal development, constant improvement is the key factor. Is one of the most major habit that can guarantee your success in any field. So that's
there's no tree or plant that's happy staying the size that it is. It either grows or it decays.
Yeah, thank you. And Dr. John, I think a lot of people have some programming, subconscious programming from their childhood, and you mentioned before, and society they grew up. And what can you suggest or make advice or just say something to people who just want to succeed? Maybe they were born in a regular, usual family, or maybe they didn't have a family, but they want to succeed. What do they need to start from? How can they succeed in and have a balanced life?
Well, that's a difficult question because it's going to apply to everyone's situation. Whatever their situation is different. The most general stuff is one, you need to exercise on a regular basis because that creates endorphins and the happy hormones and chemistry in the body. You've got to get your mind in a positive frame, and you've got to associate with people who have what you want. That's one of the best ways because belief, what you believe is possible for you, is the only thing that is possible for you. And if you have nothing in your experience that tells you that more is possible, you have no chance. So I associated with wealthy, famous, happy people, people who had what I wanted, by listening to them on tape and books. Okay, so if you don't know anyone, then that's how you do it. Well, now, if I look through the list of my friends that I actually spend time to talk with, more than half of them are multimillionaires. Now, we don't spend a lot of time together because they don't live around here, but those are the people that I kind of call a mentor with. And the other half are just good buddies, friends that are nearby around here. So you'll be an average of the people you associate with. And that includes the TV you watch, the radio you listen to, the books you read. So for me, one of my first steps, I would say turn off the television. Don't listen to commercials. Commercials tell you how lousy you are without their product. If you don't have their product, you just end up feeling lousy every time you see the commercial. So if we watch commercial television, we pause it or we mute the sound when a commercial comes on. And now we just don't have commercial cable. We watch Netflix, so we choose what we watch. I don't allow myself to be advertised to, and I certainly don't watch the news because it just fills your mind with negative things that you don't know if it's true or not. It just upsets you. Monitor how you feel. And one of the best ways is you can ask yourself questions. Decide what you want in life and ask, how does it feel to have such and such thing? The answer to that question will be a feeling. And feelings attract you what you want.
Wow.
So I would say, just in general, turn off the television, turn off the radio, okay? Exercise, find people who have what you want, associate with them, and ask yourself questions. What would it feel like to have, what you want? And that's a good place to start. Like I say, if you realize that you have these hardwired blocks, they have to be unwired. They have to be interrupted.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Dr. John. And I will put under the interview your contact information, and also I just want to mention that you are owner of just find the Chiropractic Family Health Center in Mckinney, Texas.
Yeah, north of Dallas. I really don't operate as a chiropractor anymore. I have a separate license called Pastoral Medical License. It's in the U.S. you have a constitutional right under freedom of religion. You have a constitutional right to natural holistic wellness care, and so that involves spiritual treatment, this is more like a spiritual treatment. So I'm not really putting myself out as a chiropractor so much anymore because I do a lot of this work, and it encompasses the physical, emotional, mental. It encompasses everything. So I operate under that pastoral medical license because that allows me to do everything.
Yeah. Dr. John, I just want to thank you again for your time, for great advices, for showing us how the process works and do all of this, and just very grateful to meet you personally, to have such session, and this one, it's demo version, and it's very powerful, and just feel very, very positive about being with you, and feel the energy of what you person is, and that's amazing. It's great. You are doing great job around the world, and I'm sure this Russian audience will know about you because I didn't know about you before, and I'm very, very very inspired to meet you. I'm always talk about you. My friends ask me how was Jack Cantle. I tell about Jack Cantle. I tell about the training there, and I always mention you because it was very, very powerful. And when we did that on Friday morning, I just went to Sedona and Grand Canyon after that with my.
Yeah, I was gonna say, how was the Grand Canyon?
Yeah, it was amazing. It was very nice. We went with Verena from Austria, and yeah, we just shared ideas, shared our experience with you, with Verena, because she had a session with you as well, and we had an opportunity to swim in the Oak Creek river, and yeah, just very nice clean water and very nice energy as well. And Sedona and Grand Canyon is amazing as well. It's just powerful place.
Awesome.
And after session, we just felt something different. We were more open to all of that beauty and places like this.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, it's very nice working with you. I hope this inspires some people and maybe helps out some people. So.
Absolutely. That will be so. Dr. John, thank you very much again, and thank you for help to millions of people, thousands, millions of people all over the world, because I see you as like much more bigger in a couple of years, so that's amazing.
Well, that's the thing, things grow.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you very much, Dr. John, and just let me know if I can assist or help you anyway. And I look forward to see you again, and personally and on Skype, and I will let you know how the process worked with me and all of this.
Yeah, curious to see how what this did.
Yeah. Thank you again, and have a good day, because you have full day, and we have evening here in Moscow, and that's.
Yeah, I'm done now. I'm gonna go ride my mountain bike and spend some time with my family.
Yeah. Thank you again, Dr. John.
Yeah, typically Friday I just do paperwork, so I'm a little more casual today. That's why.
Okay. Thank you, and see you very soon.
Yep, have an awesome day.
Thank you. You too. Bye.